You're listening to The Flickcast, a pop culture podcast about stuff nerds love. I am Chris Ulrich, and joining me, of course, my esteemed co-host, Joe Dilworth. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Chris. You keep using esteemed every week, and I feel like
I know.
maybe eventually I'll grow into it. I'll be a Ted Lasso, and I'll grow into it. And
wow.
You know?
A Ted Lasso. You've never even seen the show.
No,
You can't
I
talk
haven't. I
smack.
have no idea what...
You're like those people who say, I've never seen that, I don't know it, but I know I won't like it.
Right. I don't know what a Ted Lasso is or what it does, but maybe someday I'll discover.
But you don't want one.
No, I don't think I want one. I'm not... No. And I even have the channel that he's on, and I still don't watch it. But here's the thing: I'm not a big, and I know that probably doesn't quite fit this mold, but I'm not really a sitcom fan. I don't really watch sitcoms or overtly comedy shows. I'm just not. That's not my bag.
There's no laugh track or anything. It's not a sitcom.
No, and there's plenty of sitcoms that don't have laugh tracks, and I'm still like, yeah, I'm not really interested. It's just not my thing.
It's more of a
dramedy.
Well, I mean, yeah, kind of. Sitcoms are supposed to be situation comedies. That's what it means, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is the situation that's funny. It's not like people are dropping one-liners, hey-oh, and looking at the audience for a rim shot. It's like,
well, see, I might like that, but
the situation, they're not winking at the camera.
Right.
The situation itself is funny, and some of the things that the characters say is funny, and that's what makes it, a feel-good kind of show. But it's also just the sort of positivity. But we don't have to talk about Ted Lasso. I know you haven't watched it, so for clarification, we were talking about Ted Lasso in the pre-show,
yes,
which you can get if you subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/TheFlickcast. And sort of that conversation kind of carried over to this,
yes, it did.
The main episode, which it probably shouldn't, but that's okay.
Probably shouldn't. But,
these things happen.
There may be a day where we start this.
It's like the Wild West in here.
I'm going to totally spring it on you someday. I'm going to be like, dude, I just saw the best show ever, Ted Lasso. How come no one ever told me about this?
Well, now it's 3 seasons, or it's going to be 3 seasons, so you could just wait till
now it's
done,
over. So I don't want to watch it. Now it's over.
Well, no, it's only season 2
okay.
now. So they're going to do a season 3, and that's it. I think probably mostly because Jason Sudeikis is probably too busy. And the show, now that it's popular, is probably going to get way too expensive.
How can he be too busy for the show he's contracted for? That's what I don't understand. It's like people are like, oh, it has to end because he has too many other things to do. I'm like, why didn't you make him do a contract so your show would continue? I don't understand.
Well, he has a contract, but it's like scheduling. He is obliged to do the 3rd season, and I'm sure he has no problem doing it, but it's like, when do you do it? Because he's also got other commitments. He's a free agent, man. He can commit to this movie and this movie and
Except
this movie.
If you have a contract for a show, it should stipulate that you have to be available for the show, right?
Well, maybe it does, but they don't know when they're going to shoot. So it's like, how can they nail him down for the time if they don't even know when that is, especially with COVID and stuff still. They don't,
Hollywood's confusing. I just don't understand.
It is confusing. Well, I'm sure it's also like, I don't know his contract, obviously, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure there's some language where they have to make every accommodation to his other projects kind of thing. It's like, you can't just lock him in for 6 months and say, you can't do anything during this time.
But he probably can't, go sign up for, a 6-season show of 20-some episodes a year.
Well, he could if they're willing to shoot around Ted Lasso, because Ted Lasso probably, it's like the whole Mission Impossible thing with Henry Cavill, right? Mission Impossible had reshoots, but he was already doing Superman. So which one gets which one has first priority? Obviously, Mission Impossible had first priority because he kept the mustache.
I like the fact that he kept the mustache and they had to terribly digitally remove it. And then when they talked to, was it Macquarie that was directing the Mission Impossible movie, they're like, why did you stipulate? Why did the character have to have a mustache? And he's like, I didn't care if he had a mustache. He just showed up on set with a mustache, and we're like, oh, okay, the character has a mustache. He's like, he could have shaved it off before the show. We wouldn't have cared. So that was kind of funny that.
Well, the problem was the mustache was established,
right? But I'm saying
they had to do
it was
reshoots,
just like, there was like originally no reason for it, and it could have been solved if Henry Cavill had just decided to shave before Mission Impossible.
So what you're saying is Henry Cavill is an asshole.
Yeah, it was his. Yeah, maybe he's a method actor, and maybe he's like, no, this guy has a mustache because he's seen things. And
yeah, well, I think it's also like, how do I differentiate myself from also being Superman? So this character will have a mustache because mustaches are cool.
Well, he's already like 3 feet taller than Tom Cruise, so he's going to definitely be imposing.
Look at it. I mean, I think the mustache worked for the
No,
character,
I think it did too. And, facial hair is always the sign of evil in movies and TV anyway. So that was the clue right there that he was the
But he didn't commit to the full beard. I think if he committed to the beard, then you'd know he's evil. I think the mustache is like a sign that he's like, could be evil or good.
Right.
It depends.
Exactly.
He's shifty. You don't trust him. Well, if you're Ethan Hunt in that world, do you trust anybody anyway, even if they have a mustache or not? I don't know.
Well, you do trust Benji because he's always reliable. But
I don't know. I think Benji's gonna turn on him in the next movie.
He's gonna be like he's gonna be the Mission Impossible version of Blofeld. That's what it's gonna turn out. He's gonna.
It's like I'm tired. Yeah.
Be Benji all the time, the whole time. It was him. He organized all the bad guys. Yes.
He'll just come out stroking a hairless cat and go, I fucked you now, Ethan Hunt.
That would be great.
So it would be great. And perhaps that exists somewhere in the sort of
the multiverse?
Fake behind the scenes. In my mind, they're making that movie. That's the third Mission Impossible movie they're shooting all at the same time. So
yes. Yes.
Where Benji is Blofeld. Yeah. Although, didn't we already get Blofeld? I mean, Christoph Waltz was Blofeld, technically, right?
He still is. He's going to be Blofeld in the new one.
Whenever that comes out, right?
Yeah, they shot it like in the 1800s, so
they had to wind the cameras. As you
said, I just don't know if it's ever going to come out. It'll probably, I think they're saving it for the 100th anniversary of James Bond. It'll come out then.
They're selling tickets now. They kind of have to show it, I think.
I guess they do. So
I don't know. Now Disney's saying they'll never release anything on Disney Plus at the same time as in the theaters. We learned our lesson with Black Widow. We're never doing that.
Except they were saying they wish they had done that with Shang-Chi, but it's like, okay. So
oh no, Shang-Chi's making bank though.
It's the biggest movie of 2021 apparently, or at least the
that's
biggest
great.
Marvel movie. So.
That's great. It's kind of the only. I mean, not the only Marvel movie, but it's kind of the only one. So we'll see how. I think Eternals is not going to. I don't know. I have a feeling that Eternals is not going to appeal to as broad an audience as they think it will.
Well, I don't know. Apparently, it's got a longer running time than Infinity War, so that's going to be interesting. So.
Oh, this movie's eternally long. Sorry.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I was going to say at the beginning of this episode, we have a lot to talk about, and we should get to it.
We should.
That we've already gone on a tangent about Mission Impossible, which happens. I was trying to focus in, but it never really happens. And we're also recording this on a different day than we normally do, which totally threw me off.
Yeah, me too.
Completely. I'm very confused by this whole situation.
I'm not going to want to go to work tomorrow because this still should be Saturday. And
it still should be Saturday, yeah. Normally we record on Saturday, and today is Sunday, which is very bizarre. Anyway. But yes, there's a lot to cover.
Yes,
we're going to talk about What If and Why the Last Man, and of course the new Foundation.
Yeah,
not something that I put on my face. I don't wear a foundation, but
well, that's sad.
All that kind of stuff. It is sad.
You have to exfoliate.
I do. Find the Flickcast at Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Stitcher and Google Podcasts, and of course, like we said, the patreon.com/theflickcast. If you like the show and want to throw it a few bucks, and please feel free to review the show at Apple Podcasts, especially because that has the best algorithm. I mean, one of your review points could be these guys never get to the point. They just talk a lot of shit at the beginning and finally start the show.
Because that could appeal to people. So if they saw that review, they'd be like, I got to check out that podcast.
I love the fact that they don't get to the point.
Right.
Very, very quickly. Well, you know what? We got to riff a bit. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
I'm okay.
Yes.
I'm okay with riffing. So you also were very excited about, more excited than I am, about Russell T Davies coming back to Doctor Who as well. So talk about that for a second.
That was kind of a big shock. I mean, as everybody knows, well, I guess as everybody that watches Doctor Who knows, the current showrunner, Chris Chibnall, and Jodie Whittaker, who plays the Doctor, are both leaving after the next batch of new episodes, and a big kind of send-off special next year. So that always starts the speculation of who's going to take over the show and who's going to become the Doctor and things like that. One person that I was actually actively going for the role of showrunner was Joe Straczynski, who created Babylon 5. He was very interested and actually had his people talk to the BBC's people and stuff like that. Obviously, that didn't pan out because, and oddly, on a Friday evening, it dropped that Russell T Davies, who brought Doctor Who back in 2005, is returning to the show as showrunner. And that's really exciting. I mean, I know there's varying opinions of his era of the show. He arguably brought it back from obscurity and made it a household name with first Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor and then David Tennant very successfully as the Doctor. So, say what you will about him, but he not only brought back a beloved show without rebooting it and remaking it or reimagining it, but also is pretty directly responsible, with assistance from David Tennant, of course, and other writers, but making it a worldwide phenomenon. So I think it bodes well. Again, there have been varying opinions of the current era of Doctor Who. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people, myself included, think it's pretty great. But, here's the weird thing about being a Doctor Who fan, because you always know at some point the show's going to change, right? It's always going to be, at some point, there's going to be a new lead actor, there's going to be new people running it, and things like that. And it's kind of an exciting time, because it's like, well, I wonder what we're going to get and what's going to happen next. So in a way, it's sort of rebooting the show every few years, because you have a new tone, new people running it, a new actor dynamic in the lead role. So it's kind of cool. And that was kind of one of the other things people are like, oh, maybe the BBC will rest Doctor Who for a while because it's been back since 2005. But you kind of really don't need to do that. If things aren't going well and, people aren't watching, just regenerate the show, and that brings a lot of people back. So anyway, very excited. I think it's going to be really great. I'm of course highly curious as to who he'll cast as the Doctor, and what kind of companions dynamic we'll get. But it's all very exciting, and I think it bodes well for the future of the show, especially since they're bringing him back specifically in the 2023 for the 60th anniversary of the show, to do something, whether it's a special or a series of episodes or whatever, to mark the 60th anniversary, and then to kind of shepherd the show going forward after that. So all very exciting.
Anyway, Doctor Who.
Yes.
Yay. I don't know.
And the other,
it doesn't, you know what? And I can certainly allow for the fact that there's lots of fandoms that I'm not
absolutely.
a part of, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And you can enjoy the shit out of Doctor Who. I say go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's tons of fandoms that I'm like, you know what? That's not my cup of tea. But
like Ted Lasso. You don't like Ted Lasso.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. I don't begrudge the people that like it, and I think it's great that people have latched on to something that brings them joy. I mean,
but at least I've watched Doctor Who, and
I know, I don't think I've said anything despairing or disparaging about Ted Lasso. I'm just like, it just doesn't seem to be.
I don't like things that bring me joy, is what you're trying to say.
That's not what I don't know. I think I've even seen like some videos and stuff where I'm like, that's probably not really my thing. But hey, a lot of people love it, and that's great. I mean, there's been quite a few shows that have existed and been around where I'm like, that's not for me. But
it's that's the nice thing about, people could disparage Apple and they say shit about, Apple company and their electronics and everything, iPhones, et cetera, et cetera. One thing I do like the fact that they are spending a lot of money on shows.
Yes.
For Apple TV Plus.
Yes.
Ted Lasso is one of them, but that leads us into Foundation, which just came onto the Apple TV Plus system. They premiered with 2 episodes, which I thought was nice. And now you have to wait till Monday for the 3rd one. But I watched it, and I know you did too. So should we just jump into that one first?
Yes. Why don't you go first this time? What do you think?
Me go first.
Yeah.
I haven't read the Foundation series of books in a long time, and so, if I recall, and I could be wrong about some of this, but if I recall, it's a very sprawling, epic story that takes place over thousands of years with like 100,000 different characters or something. So the idea that they were that's one of the reasons everyone always said, oh, it's probably unfilmable because there's no like central protagonist really,
right.
Except maybe the android. The android or the robot lives a long time, but whose name escapes me. But she's in this movie, although in the book it's a male robot.
Yes.
So it's foundation in name, and some of the premise is similar, but it's not at all like the books, which I understand because it's a TV show and you can't just have the characters change every every 10 minutes. So you have to have like a central narrative line. You have to have a central kind of idea. So I imagine adapting it like this must have been pretty difficult. But I think the show looks amazing, and Jared Harris is awesome, and the girl they got to play the lead, I can't remember her name, but yeah, Lula Bell. Yes, yeah. She's great. She's definitely grown on me. I think one of the only weakest acting is the guy.
Raish.
Jared Harris's character.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, Raish.
Yeah.
He's not good, and that's unfortunate. I mean, he's like all over the place. He reminds me of Damon Wayans or something every time he speaks, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah,
but it's like his voice sounds like I don't know if he's a Wayans or not, but he's just not as good as everybody else. And she's surprisingly good. I've never seen her before in anything. I know she's had some other credits, but I've never seen her in anything. She's really good, and of course, again, Jared Harris, amazing. Lee Pace, awesome.
Yeah.
So I like the show a lot, and I think that I've already watched both episodes twice, and it's growing on me more. I mean, I missed a lot when I was watching the first time, and so now I can hear the dialogue. I was like purposely trying to hear more of the story and the dialogue and everything, but I'm enjoying it a lot. But it's not Foundation based on the books. It's just like a totally different story. So
the guy who plays Raish, Alfred Enoch, was Dean Thomas in the Harry Potter films, just so people know. But
okay.
And
well, then that gives him street cred. Is that what you're saying?
I guess. And he was also on How to Get Away with Murder.
He's English. You're saying?
He's actually English Brazilian, which is interesting, but he's not.
I mean, he's got a good look.
Yeah.
But his acting is terrible. I'm sorry. No,
he
nothing
was
against
kind
him.
Of the sore thumb in the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and they could have gotten like so many different people. I mean, he must have appealed to somebody, but I don't see it. So anyway. But I mean, it's weird when you have him, and then he's in the same scene as Lula Bell, who definitely has gotten. She's grown on me for sure. I was less sure about her too because it's a lot to carry for her in the show, and she's definitely become I'm more of a fan now. But it's hard when he's in the same scene with Jared Harris, who's fucking blowing him away.
Yeah,
so it's
like
you just don't speak much and let Harris carry the entire scene. You'll be fine.
Right, exactly.
What did you think of it?
I love it. So just as a little bit of background, Foundation was originally a series of short stories that Asimov wrote over like 8 years or something like that. And then they were collected as 3 novels as a trilogy. And then eventually he, many years later in the 80s and 90s, he was convinced to write some more books that continued the story, as well as some prequels and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you're right. It was, originally the entire story is kind of told over this 1,000-year period, and it has been touted as being unfilmable. And I take that to mean is like there's no way you could have done like a 2-hour movie and done justice to the story, right? Unless you just told a piece of it.
It had to be a series like this.
Yeah.
It had to be something where you could just tell the entire thing. I mean, I was seeing interviews with some of the showrunners and stuff. This is an 8-year. They have like an 8-year plan or something.
Yeah.
With Apple gives them 8 years. Who knows? But.
Right. And David Goyer is responsible for restructuring the show and bringing it to TV. And Goyer is kind of like the IP guy. I mean, if you're going to adopt an IP to TV, especially, you're going to go with Goyer because he has a keen eye, I think, and I like his writing. I know a lot of people don't, but I do like the way he reinterprets things, and definitely there's a lot here reinterpreted. I mean, I read the original trilogy like back in high school, so there's a lot I probably am misremembering about the story because it has been very influential on a lot of things over the years. So I may be remembering parts of it as something else that was made later that was influenced by it. So I'm still kind of unclear as to what I know. Some of the things they've changed, like you said, Lula Bell's character Gale was also a male. It was a different time. It was the 40s and 50s, and it's very misogynistic in sci-fi, right? Very few females in Asimov's writing, even though he was kind of a lech. But
kind of, yeah. I mean, yeah. which I find interesting because I don't know if you watch the opening credits of the show or just fast forward through them or whatever. But in the opening credits, there's like regular size credits, and then there's based on the novels by Isaac Asimov.
Yeah, it's really small.
Like it's
like they're almost embarrassed to admit it or something.
Well, I mean, he's getting a lot of because the show came out. There's been a lot of people talking about his behavior and how he was a kind of a womanizing asshole at conventions and stuff,
right?
And just in general, and very very misogynistic. I mean, I'm sure it's true. I have no doubt that he was. If enough people say it's true, it must be. But I mean, I didn't know the man, obviously. So,
but yeah, Gail, Lou LaBelle is tremendous in this. I'm like, wow, she is really good. And you were talking about Jared Harris. She actually holds her own in scenes with him. But Jared Harris is just, I'm very happy to see him play a non-evil character because he's had a string of playing really, really malevolent bad guys.
Is he good? I don't know.
I mean, he's a scientist. He's just following the math, right? So
well, that's true, I suppose. But that's also been used to justify a lot of stuff in the past.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This could be spoiler territory, but it's just if you haven't watched the show yet, you should definitely watch it. If you have Apple TV Plus, of course. But yeah, I think it's really it's a lavish production. Let's put it that way. The money's on the screen. There's a lot of big things that happen.
Go ahead.
I'm saying I also like the interplay between the three clones.
That is new to the story, and that was created by Goyer. And I like the fact that they have 3 ages of clones for the original emperor that has continued as the emperor going on. It's really the dynamic and that whole concept to me is really cool. I like it.
Yeah, I do too. I enjoy it a lot. I think that it'll be interesting that, of course, there had to be, I don't want to spoil it, but again, spoilers a little bit. I like the fact that they brought in a robot character, right?
Yes.
Because Asimov, of course, is famous for the 3 laws of robotics and, iRobot and all that stuff. So, but that character figures prominently in the book, if I remember, because that character is part of, I'm trying to remember. But anyway, that robot goes through the entire empire, like all the empires, and she helps these guys, Cleon the First, and is around for all that and helps the new Foundation and stuff. I mean, she's not a good or bad influence, but I feel like in this she's going to have more of an agenda because they make a point of saying, she makes a point of saying, my kind were destroyed by your kind. It's not the same.
Yes.
We didn't die. We were murdered.
Well, that was
by humans.
That was one of the things in the later Foundation books, and also the other books in his iRobot series and Empire series and stuff like that. In later years, Asimov kind of weaved all of those into one universe. And that was the character, the android character in the original stories was meant to be not only a follow through in the 1,000 Years and further in the Foundation series, but also from the original iRobot stories and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting that they renamed the character, but it's interesting to have that character here and to see how that follows through. So.
Yeah, they renamed it, but also made it a woman too. So.
Yeah, and there's also a time jump here. We go back and forth between, what's going on with Jared Harris's character and Gale, and also 35 years in the future of the story with what appears to be the Foundation already built. So we get to see kind of the creation of it and then the fallout from it. So I wonder, at some point, do we shift over to the 35 years later story permanently kind of thing? I don't know. So we'll see.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely curious to see what happens in the 3rd episode after the sort of cliffhanger from episode 2.
And I don't think that's what we think it is, but...
well, no, obviously it's not. But, I just find it would be an interesting narrative choice to... to do that to your, to one of your main characters or whatever. But anyway, it's... I love the fact that, I love sci-fi, so I love the fact that they're spending this much money on their Game of Thrones, basically. It's Game of Thrones in space, I think is what they're going for.
Yes.
So there's going to be a lot of political intrigue. There's going to be a lot of, and one thing I found interesting too, there's like 2 sex scenes in one episode. It's like, I understand this is HBO, but or Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, it's just like, wait, yeah.
Why are they boning all the time?
Right.
I mean, I get that. I feel like maybe that's the reason that she's willing to accept what he says later, and follow him in running down the hallway. Unquestionably, yeah. So, but that seems like the time jumps are somewhat jarring. There's a couple of times where I'm like, wow, where are we? And I can follow things pretty well usually, but the fact that they're that close to each other
that quickly,
it seems it seemed quick. But I do love the fact that she's got a pool in the ship.
Yeah,
because of course you do, because you're from a water planet, so naturally you want to swim.
Yeah, so. I think you're right. It seems to be really condensed in the story, and maybe it is just the first 2 episodes are kind of like the setup and all that. But yeah, you're right. It was kind of jarring to me that I'm like, wait a second, when did they get close? It would have been, I think it would have been nice from being a writer and from a narrative point of view to have spent a little bit more time, because it does seem kind of like a little bit jarring. And then it's also like, well, if you spent more time on it, it would have given us more, I don't want to say more time to care about the characters and the decisions they make, but it would probably carry more impact. But, who knows? We'll find out in the 3rd episode. Maybe there is a reason why we've pushed forward so quickly. So
maybe. I mean, they do have that one scene when they're having dinner or lunch or whatever, where there's a conflict between Jared Harris and that guy whose character name escapes me, but which I thought was weird because they seemed really like happy in the first episode, and then his aggression and his animosity comes out of nowhere. Is he just disillusioned now because she said something about the math, or I don't know?
Yeah,
it's just. And then he basically said, it's not what you think or whatever. So, I mean, who knows? But maybe it's Harry's plan all along. It was Harry all along.
It was Harry, yes.
So,
well, he seems to have it all meticulously planned out. Yeah, because he's very insistent on not like, I didn't do this. He's like, you can't be here. You need to leave now. This isn't what you think it is.
Yeah. It was weird.
Yeah.
It was weird. And I feel like it was a situation of this is happening because, and we'll get into this and Why the Last Man, we're talking about that too. In this 3rd episode was also kind of a similar situation for me. It's like they're just doing stuff to motivate something else that happens. And then, it's just like the characters aren't necessarily behaving how they would behave. It's just more like, this is in service to the script.
Right.
This is the scene where he gets angry at Harry. And now for the next scene, you understand why this happens, except you don't really understand why it happens because that wasn't developed at all, really.
Right.
So
yes,
it's like he goes from like 0 to, he's like fine. And there's even a scene in between that when they're in the hologram room or whatever, looking at the sunset, and he's like, everything's fine, everything's fine, whatever. But it's like, what are you pissed off about, dude? You're kind of being a dick, right?
Right. Yeah. And
what are you angry about? Because Harry's not your real dad, or what is like, you're not my real dad,
right.
It's like,
yeah,
grow up. I don't know. It's just, and his character just bothers me in the show. I'm sorry, but.
And then like Harry took that pill at the meal, and it was like they spent a lot of focus on that, and that seemed to piss off Raish too. And it's like, what is going on? So yeah, you're right. It seems like we're rushing to get to
Raish,
the next
that's the character I can remember.
Plot point without properly motivating getting there. So that was kind of weird. The biggest thing, though, I really like about this is that the look of it is not like... I'm sure all the looks and set dressing and all that are based or influenced by other stuff, but it looks different to me. It doesn't look like here's another sci-fi show and...
Yeah, but it's so hard now. It's so hard. It's like, I read something where Goyer or whatever, they're saying, don't make me anything that looks like Star Wars or whatever. It's like, it's hard not to make something that looks like Star Wars.
But it looks different, and that was, to me, was kind of nice that it doesn't look familiar to me, and I like that. So
I mean, it looks familiar enough because you have to at some point, I mean, obviously this isn't Earth or anything like that, but at some point, at least in the books, they end up back at Earth. And they find out what happened to that, it's like it's Earth influenced, because they still say shit. If you know, and they still swear, which I thought was interesting. And at the beginning, it's like, do you want to? You can see my tit. It's like, who says tit? Apparently, that's a thing that it's like.
Right.
Obviously, they have to make it relatable to audiences right now, but anyway, there's definitely some anachronism and stuff like that, which is interesting. And I don't know if it took me out of the show or not. The world building, I think, is pretty good, but I think the world building has been better in other shows. Honestly, it's just.
I mean, they established, that it's pretty much humans just modified, and we have those two other planets that end up on the bad side of the Emperor. But I would say
don't annoy your Emperor.
Yeah, I would say I'm definitely invested in Gail's storyline to see what happens with her. But I guess to me the most interesting aspect is the whole Emperor dynamic, especially like, the old man is declining, isn't he? And stuff like that. And it's like I don't know, it's really cool because they're not doing the jealousy thing they are, I guess, a little bit, but it's not like he's not like plotting to kill his older self or his younger self so that he can be emperor solely. I mean, he's making decisions probably without them, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's going in a cliche direction, and I kind of like that.
Well, I mean, I get the feeling that since he's the emperor, that's what they have that whole, he and the older version of himself have that argument about. So you agree that I'm the emperor.
Right.
So I think when you get to a certain age, you pass the torch to the Dawn ascending, as he's talking about, to the little kid ascending.
Right.
It's like he's going to become the emperor eventually. But I think you're right. I think Lee Pace's character is like, I could be in charge longer.
But he also seems to be like, I'm trying to train my younger self to be the emperor that I want to be, right? So he's not like, I'm going to off him. He's just like, no, you need to learn these. But I have a feeling that the robot is like kind of dedicated to helping him become a true and just emperor. Because he spends a lot of time. It's kind of like the robot's kind of his de facto mother in a way, because he's always with her and stuff like that. So,
they have that whole scene when the Lee Pace's character deals with the dissidents or whatever. Yeah. It's like, does it always end up like this? He's like, yeah, you always decide this, which means, I mean, he's already starting to, the little kid's already seeming to have more empathy than Lee Pace's emperor does.
Yeah.
And so the robot, it seems like, I think her agenda is to try to, humanize humans, maybe, who are becoming more robot-like in a way. And so, like she says, even, it's like it makes more sense if you commit to one reality,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, this is the reality where humans can improve. I don't know that her motivations are definitely malevolent, but I mean, it could be. But I feel like you're right. I think she's trying to teach him to be better, which will obviously cause conflict between him and maybe even her and Lee Pace's character, because obviously she could be hurt.
Right.
She's not invulnerable. So that, I would say that character is the most interesting to me, and then of course Gail is I'm following her story. Jared Harris is great, but I don't feel like he's. I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't feel like he's the main character of the story. It's not his story; it's her story. She does the voiceover, so obviously she's the narrator, right?
Exactly. So. And then of course I want to find out what's going on 35 years later with the Vault, and and that character especially is like, at first I was like, oh, is that an older version of Gale, but the time doesn't work out. But she's able to approach the Vault just fine where no one else can. So that's I don't know. It's kind of cool. I like it.
Well, it does what the first couple episodes of a show were supposed to do. It gives you it doesn't answer any questions, or it answers a few, but it also poses a lot more questions to get you to come back. So
yes,
you're doing a show where you want people to come back, and I think that I will, and I hope this show goes on forever. But I don't know; it's got to be pretty expensive. So
yeah, and like I said, I think my only complaint is, especially if it's envisioned as an 8-season show, it seems like the first 2 episodes are really rushed to get to a certain point.
What's the hurry?
Yeah. I'm like, well, okay, so that just seems kind of weird. But again, we'll see how that plans out. Maybe we do get more of the backstory and stuff like that.
I mean, there's absolutely no reason they can't have scenes of their relationship building. In fact, episode 3 should do that probably.
Right.
Like, here's something weird that gets you to this point. and now we're going to go back to how this whole thing developed.
Right.
So you'll tell the story from, to a certain point, and then you have to back up and see how we got here, like with the.
Yeah, I mean they've already established time jumps, so that won't be that big a deal if they decide to do that. So.
Well, they've got a lot of time too because they have 800 and some days on the ship. So
exactly, yeah.
A lot of shit can happen.
Yes.
In that amount of time. So. I was going to say something else about it, but I can't think of what it was. So I'm sure we'll get back to Foundation. I'm sure we will.
But I like it so far, and I'm definitely continuing. Yeah. So, and you should watch it if you haven't. So,
you should. And again, I will stand by my opinion that it's basically Apple was like, we need our own Game of Thrones, and so now they have it.
Yes,
but it's in space.
Yes. And Robin Asimov, Asimov's daughter, is one of the executive producers. So, kind of has an official stamp on it. So,
which is fine, except they seem to be trying to distance themselves from Apple.
Yeah, they do. So, and maybe she was like, well, let's not play that up too much.
My dad was kind of an asshole. I don't know. I mean, whatever. He was a genius writer. I think his stuff is pretty amazing. But I think that your behavior is important too. So you can't.
I found Goyer's one sentence pitch for this series, which has me intrigued and I think plays into some of the things we've been talking about. But he says, it's a 1,000-year chess game between Harry Seldon and the Empire, and all the characters in between are the pawns. But some of the pawns, over the course of the saga, end up becoming kings and queens. So there you go. So Game of Thrones in space. In space.
Space. Well, that brings up an interesting point, and then we'll move on. Yeah. Do people live longer in this time?
Oh, that's true. That's possible.
I mean, there's accidents or being shot or whatever, notwithstanding,
or hung or atomized or whatever,
or whatever. Yeah. So it's funny to me how some of the things like stood out. Like why are they rappelling with rope? Don't they have like anti-grav boots or some shit? Right. So it's like I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. There were some things that were very very like incongruous maybe with it being the future, because you think of the future being everything is jetpacks and stuff, and then here's these guys rappelling down with rope.
I guess you got to make it relatable though in some ways. But.
Well, and you're also hanging people with rope, which I thought was kind of interesting too.
Old school, man.
Old school. Yeah, it's old school. So biblical justice kind of thing. So.
Yeah. So anyway, you should watch it. It's really good, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So.
Well, yeah, you can also make the case that they do this kind of stuff because of tradition, right?
Yeah, exactly. So.
Okay, so should we go to? Let's talk about what if. I'm sorry. Let's talk about why.
Okay, let's go to that.
Since we're talking about infuriating episodes, I like Why the Last Man, but I'm not in love with it still. And one of the reasons I'm not in love with it is shit that happened in this episode. It's like we need to invent a reason for him to run off. I'm sorry, spoilers if you haven't watched Why the Last Man. We need to invent a reason for him to run off and do stupid shit. Oh, I thought I saw my girlfriend. It's like is he the dumbest person in the world, or is it just contrived for the show? Because that scene was like, are you stupid? You don't get it.
Right.
So, I mean, I imagine it's character motivated, but it rubbed me the wrong way for sure. So, you know what I mean, right?
Well,
you remember the scene?
Yeah. I had a lot of problems with that whole scene. First of all, it's like 3:55. He should have tried to run off, and she immediately grabs him by the collar and is like, no fucking way. Right. But she's like, I guess busy or what. I was just like, so they contrive a reason for her not to pay attention, which is against her character. And then they contrive a reason to separate them. And then, of course, as he's going after her, what's like the first thing he does? He takes off his mask. It's like, okay. It's like,
well, no, they took. I mean, the women took.
Oh, that's true. Right? Yeah, that's right. But
he was on.
It's still like. So they had to contrive a reason for people. It's a man after him, kind of.
And also like the Apple Dumpling Gang or whatever. They're like the worst shots in the universe too.
Yeah.
Which I guess is good because there was a lot of bullets flying. You would figure that someone would got hit.
But 3:55 is not astute enough to notice that he's run off and grab him before he gets too far. But she's good enough to suddenly show up to save him.
to find him under the bleachers where
right. I was just like,
where no one can see you.
Come on.
that it bothered me. It's like you're just doing this to get to another scene. So, well, I'm sure there's a reason that he was revealed to these particular women because I feel like there'll be another group that's in conflict down the road. But I don't know if they'll be like the Amazons or whatever. But maybe that's Missy Pyle's group. I was happy to see Missy Pyle, by the way. That was cool.
She's always fun.
I like her. Yeah, she was. That was a good character. It was an interesting character, and she seems very no nonsense. And that was an interesting way. I didn't like the stuff with him in 355. I thought that was stupid. I mean, stupid is the word I would use.
It really was.
And they already did it once with the two people coming to their camp.
Yeah.
It's like, didn't you learn anything from something that just fucking happened like a half hour ago? You dumb shit.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, yeah.
And so that annoyed me. Just as I was kind of starting to like their dynamic, he's an idiot, and I hope the fact that. I mean, I guess the point is that he's always been an idiot. And he's just a fuck up, and it's not any different.
But he's still using the excuses like, "I'm sorry, I just didn't think, I just didn't know." It's like this is supposed to be.
Maybe this will be the last.
Yeah. Several days or several weeks in, and I'm like,
maybe. But I feel like they had a moment of closure or a moment of clarity on the bridge, maybe.
Yeah.
And so now maybe he won't do stupid shit anymore. Because she says, "I'll help you find your girlfriend later," which she won't. Of course, she's just saying that.
She should have.
She's like, "I hope you're dead later." Honestly, because you're a fucking.
I'm going to get you where we need to go. We're going to solve this, and then I'm going to kill you.
Then I'm going to fucking kill you. Yeah. Once we get all your genetic material that we could possibly get, I'm going to strangle you with my bare hands because you're annoying as fuck.
In fact, if you keep doing this, I'm just going to hack off your arm and kill you, and take that and say, "Here you go."
Exactly. Here, just examine this. Why was this still alive? Yeah. I mean, we got the monkey now. We don't really need you. The monkey's
exactly.
Also,
he actually listens.
Male.
He
actually, yeah, exactly.
so
I did, I did like the fact that they addressed the helicopter thing, and it made sense why they had to land, and whatever. I guess that all makes sense, but they need a motorcycle and they need all that stuff, and he's just a dumb shit, and she's not a dumb shit. But what was I didn't understand the whole like dancing stuff. And like her being, I don't know. Yeah, I sometimes feel like they put that stuff in, so it's like, oh, now it's confusing.
Well, my thing is, we have to land the helicopter, and then I'm going to take it apart to sell the parts. I'm like, why would you not take the helicopter as far as you could? Except for, well, we need story, and we need to have these characters learn something on the way, so we're going to make them walk most of the way. I just
helicopters are expensive, Joe. They can't afford the helicopter. They got to get people walking on the ground where it's cheap.
I know, but I was just like, okay, that's dumb. Again,
you can only have the helicopter for a couple of days.
I mean, I think I'm more invested in a hero story at this point. Because
although that whole thing with her and her friend, that kind of rang hollow.
That was kind of you're right. Yeah.
But I do understand why she's reluctant to go see her mom, and she's trying to prevent it, and that was interesting. But they're dumb too. I think the problem with the show for me is that all the characters seem really dumb.
Well, so we found a car again. We found transportation that works, so I'm going to sabotage it so I don't have to go see my mom. Because her friend that's with her is right. It's like, dude, none of this crap matters. This is the end of the world. We got to go, And it seemed like she would be thinking more about her friend. It's like, I don't want to go see my mom, but he's going to be in a bad way eventually if we don't.
They need the testosterone.
So I'm going to swallow my pride and go see mom. I mean, maybe I think part of it is that she knows that she killed a guy, and she's got to face that at some point, and she's trying to avoid facing that, but in a really weird way. But, I mean, I do like the group that they fell in with, and again, Missy Pyle is fantastic, and the fact that they've got basically a Costco that they've taken over.
That was cool.
That was kind of because I've always said if there's like a end of the world apocalypse or a zombie apocalypse, I'm going to go hole up in a Costco. I mean, everything you need is right there.
Right, but lots of other people will think of that too, and they probably have way more guns than you do.
Probably, yeah.
So, but I like the fact, that's. Her character, I'm already interested in Missy Pyle, first of all, because I think she's a great actress. But also, like, she just comes on the screen, you're like, oh, who's that?
Yeah.
You're drawn to that person because that's an interesting dynamic character who takes action, who does what's necessary. Sure, it's a stereotype, but so what? It works a little bit. I know they're trying to humanize 355 a little bit too, which I'm fine with. It's just, she seems like I hate when they establish like smart characters and then make them do dumb things.
Exactly. That was totally
like
this.
she's too smart for this, and so you're making her do dumb things for the sake of a contrived bit that you know. First of all, you have to get rid of the helicopter, which I understand from a tactical standpoint. It is the only thing flying, whatever. But then also, but so what? You fly right to the house. Big fucking deal, right? It's like, now we know where this doctor lives. We just land in her front yard. Who gives a shit?
With everything going on, who's likely to try to shoot you out of the sky?
I mean, maybe lots of people will.
I
but
guess,
also, I mean, I understand it sort of because they got to protect his identity, but it's just anyway. The show is bothering me a little bit. I got to be honest. It's bothering me. I like the second episode. I thought was pretty good, but this was kind of worse. Also, maybe because we didn't have any Diane Lane at all.
I liked the first 2 episodes, and then this one was just full of dumb and really dumb decisions. And it isn't like the typical well, you don't know what people would decide in an apocalypse. It's like you said, almost I expected when he ran off and 355 didn't notice to hear wah wah wah. I mean, it was almost that comical that it was like, really, that was so contrived and ridiculous. That are we now in a Groucho Marx movie? I mean, so and you're right. You know what?
Are we shooting elephants in our pajamas?
Exactly. I actually missed the White House political stuff in this episode because that was like, oh, that's actually kind of intriguing and different that they're spending detail on that and what would possibly happen. And now we're just a series of dumb decisions throughout the.
Well, now we're like the Walking Dead, basically. Where
exactly.
It's not zombies you have to worry about. It's other people,
right?
Being stupid, and it's you being stupid too. I mean, I guess. Unfortunately, for better or worse, they have to, if they want to have a show that lasts several seasons, characters can't just get where they're going. She can't just get him to the doctor, and figure out what's going on. So it has to be a while. I mean, obviously, the Dr. Mann appears in the show because she's cast, and it's going to happen.
I think,
but there has to be several episodes where they have to dick around first, like stay in a house looking for Carl for 3 episodes or 6 episodes, in order to, it's like, don't take the Walking Dead playbook in that respect. Although I guess you could say it's a hugely successful show, so maybe you should, but. If you're going to establish intelligent characters who do the right thing and know what they're doing, then don't make them do dumb things for the sake of your write better, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Well, it's a silly thing to say, but write it better.
And I think what's her name, Nora, the former press advisor, and her kid that keep showing up are really annoying me. And I'm like, I guess they're supposed to show, we're helpless and stuff. I don't know what they're supposed to bring across, but that they too are another series of, I think, dumb decisions. And I'm like, why are we still spending time with those characters? You could have just not shown them ever again, and I'd have been fine with that.
I think that she'll figure prominently in the new regime that's being established.
Yeah.
I mean, she'll have some kind of cred that will help. Like she says, I know who you are. I worked at the White House. I'm not stupid. So. Yeah. Which is weird because I get the impression that Hero has never been to the White House or never visited her mom, and her mom really didn't work at the White House. She was in Congress, right? So it's like, why was she at the White House ever? I work for the president. So why would you know this obscure congressman's daughter or congresswoman's daughter? It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense either. I visited your mom's office. She's got a picture of you in her office. Like, she's got that kind of memory.
Right. That was.
But it was funny. She said, I know who you are, Karen. Which everyone's got.
I know who your mother is, Karen. Yeah. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah. I figure that that character is going to have some prominence in this group of women, and she's going to be like flipping out at some point and doing crazy shit.
I expect now that since we set the precedent that she's going to do something dumb like out Hero to try to get more food or save herself or something dumb like that, and then Hero is going to have to be on the run and she's got to go through a whole grueling
Heroes
thing.
On the run.
And I'm just like, why don't you just go fix the car and just drive to DC in a couple hours and be done with that?
Simple. Well, yeah, because no one can do the simple story because it has to take years to get someplace.
Yeah.
And you got to advance the story, but as slowly as possible, right?
Right. So that's why I guess I'm kind of I'm looking forward to, but wary of the next episode of Foundation. It's like, is it gonna? we had a great setup. Like the first 3 episodes of Y were really good, and now are we gonna do dumb stuff and go off on weird tangents, or are we gonna stay solid in storytelling? I mean, I know it's a different group of people writing and producing, but
Sure.
I just really
the first season of shows are often difficult,
yeah, that's
especially if you're, but I mean, with Why the Last Man, you have IP that you can draw from, and Foundation, you have IP you can draw from. You don't have to even, Game of Thrones, I thought was an amazing first season actually, and it's just, we're talking about Game of Thrones earlier, so why not just throw that in there? It's like, because you had existing, an existing novel or a series of novels with story where characters are probably not doing stupid stuff. It's only later when you have to figure things out yourself that characters do stupid stuff.
Yorick was much smarter in the comic than the series.
He seemed like he was, but they're trying not to make it Yorick's story. You know what I mean? They're trying to make it more, and maybe that's a handicap in some ways. Like you had a smart character, but now you don't want. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be diverse and there shouldn't be anything like that at all. I'm saying there was a reason that the story worked because you had a character who wasn't dumb.
Right. Right.
And so now all his motivation is like, I'm just trying to find my girlfriend. It's like he doesn't even propose to her on screen in the comics. It's like off screen.
Right.
I mean, I hate to say off screen, but it's like
she's already in Australia at the time.
Right. Yeah. She doesn't figure as prominently in that necessarily. I mean, yeah, he's trying to find her, but that's not his sole motivation. It seems like his sole motivation right now is like, I got to find her.
Right.
And what, so, and I will say that in an earlier episode, the daughter like running to the crows and falling on the shovel was also a fucking annoying contrivance.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Those two are like the two most helpless people on the planet. So it's like, just end them and move on, because they have no like motivation or impetus to do anything smart to survive. Just sit around and fall apart about everything. It's like
I wonder if they're trying to make some kind of statement where like the press liaison or whatever her job was, it's like she was useless. She had no real skills, which she's like, I'm just gonna get robbed anyway. So it's like you were a useless person,
right?
So your job was useless, and obviously you weren't important because they didn't let you in the White House. They didn't call you, so you weren't important,
right? So
now your job is not important. So I mean, I guess in a way, it's like a character moment for her where she's gonna learn, to survive, right? Because she's basically all of her skills up to this point. Like, who needs PR in a fucking apocalypse, right? Nobody.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But it's just like.
So I feel like that's the direction they're going to go in with her, and she's going to find new power with this female whatever, and become like I feel like she's like 2 seconds away from snapping and going nuts, and just like killing people. It's like she's going to become best friends with Missy Pyle's character. They're going to go on like a tri-state killing spree or something.
It'll be like Thelma and Louise all over again.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I don't know that Missy Pyle is going to keep recurring on the show, but I hope she does. But I don't know if she will. But I feel like they're going that direction with that character, which is why she's still around. And also, they want to give Hero something to do. You want to humanize Hero because of although what happened to her was an accident, it was also kind of a stupid accident too, in a way, if you think about it. But it's just she's trying to redeem herself, but you're trying to redeem her as a character, maybe.
Yeah.
So she can help this person and do whatever she can. But I'm not a doctor. I'm just an EMT, which is funny because EMTs basically, I'm not, talking shit about EMTs, but they're like as far away from a doctor as you can be,
right?
And still have some, medical knowledge about something. It's like they can't do.
Well, they triage. They have the basic stuff. They don't know surgery and things like that.
Well, no, of course not. And so she did exactly what she could do. Right. And she said, I did all I can do. I can't. She closed the wound in the back and did a few things, and but she's not going to go digging in there for a bullet or something.
Right.
So, which is, of course, what her character's like. Can't fix her. Boom, dead. So, very practical.
I hope they turn it around in the next couple episodes, because if it's,
I'm sure they will. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. But I feel like it's the same excuse or the same rationale that Walking Dead creators and writers use. Like you're all dealing with trauma. You're all dealing with the apocalypse, and people aren't rational, and they make dumb decisions because they're not thinking straight. They're all under trauma and stress and whatever, which I guess makes sense in a way, because you don't know how you'd react if this kind of thing. Although if it's the Why the Walking Dead, Why the Last Man world, we'd be dead, so it wouldn't matter.
Right,
but
well, we wouldn't have to worry about it. So.
We wouldn't have to worry about it. And are they making some kind of commentary like women don't traditionally have to make these decisions, so now they're struggling?
Well, that was part of it. They're like kind of spent a little bit of time in the early episodes like, how do we do all this? And I'm like, surely, I mean, if it's in the present day, a lot of these infrastructure places have a fairly robust staff of women working there. So the whole like, oh my God, everything is going to fall apart. It's like, wow,
but do they though? That's the question. Do they or
maybe that's a statement they're making. I don't know. But
right, if they do have women in positions of authority in these infrastructure places, maybe they're not in high enough positions where they understand everything or privy to understanding everything that happens. But I mean, the idea that there's only like one nuclear engineer that's a woman is not that hard to understand because women, for whatever reason, don't go into science as much because they're men don't like that or whatever.
Maybe that's their statement on this.
It is. I think it is. I think that's part of it. It's like girls should do science. I think they should absolutely do science if they want to. If that makes them happy, they should do it. Anyone should do science if it makes them happy.
It just seems like much like the problem I had with The Walking Dead. In 2 or 3 weeks, the world is completely fallen apart. And I'm like, I don't know. I guess I have a little bit of problem. And maybe that's what would happen. And obviously, I guess they need to exaggerate and accelerate things for storytelling purposes. But it's like, I mean, even like at first they were showing...
Dude, I don't know, man. If the trash doesn't get picked up for a week, people are going to fucking freak.
Right.
That's
well, they were like three days later, it was already like chaos and doom, and then 3 weeks later it's like we're back in the Stone Age. I'm just like, I don't know. It seems a little disingenuous, but
yeah, I read this series of novels about post-apocalyptic. I read a lot of post-apocalyptic sci-fi books.
Man, you're
and
dark.
There's this one. I am dark. Well, because I mean, it's just interesting to me, and a lot of zombie books too. I'll be honest, but. There was this guy who'd done a lot of research about what would happen infrastructure wise and whatever, and it was interesting how little time it takes, at least in this series of novels, how little time it takes for shit to just break down completely.
Right.
Because if no one is stoking the fires go out, and people don't pick up the garbage, people don't and you've got all these bodies everywhere, and dead bodies are bad. They have disease and decay and everything. And it's like, in the smell, I mean, I would leave Washington. It's like the smell must be overwhelming at this point.
Right.
It's like The Stand, that Stephen King book. It's like they're trying to leave New York. New York would be like, you got to get the fuck out of New York because there's so many people packed in. The stench had to be overwhelming. I mean, New York already kind of stinks anyway.
Right.
No offense, New Yorkers, but it mostly smells like pee.
Right.
Depending on where you are. But millions of dead bodies.
True.
They didn't just disappear. So it's like seeing that has to be traumatic too. And so there's just a lot of things that go into it. But my point was that it was surprising to me a little bit how quickly infrastructure would deteriorate. Like 2 weeks, and we're all fucked basically. Right. We're like 2 weeks away from anarchy, and people will take advantage of that. There are people who take advantage of that. So the only thing
that's keeping us going is men?
Right, exactly. Okay. The dudes are the only one. Okay. White men, average white males are the only ones keeping us going.
I mean, I get it. It's a story, and we got to get to... We can't be like, 2 years later. It's got to be pretty relevant and pretty immediate. So I get it, but it just seemed...
Well, I really do think in many cases there's a lot of male dominated fields for better or worse. I mean, for worse, I think, but it's just there. Science is a male dominated field. Government is a male dominated field in a lot of ways, and positions of power in infrastructure and the wealth is concentrated with men more than women. And it's just, that's, I think what they're saying is that look what happens without men, because men have not let women or other people have these positions. So look how fucked everything is. You should try giving us more chances, maybe. I don't know. I
could see that.
I'm just speculating, but I mean, it's clear there's difficulty. They have to get this nuclear plant working or whatever, and they find this woman who can do it, and she's able to do it. But why did she leave? Why did she not work in science anymore? Was she, who knows why? But it's like I can't go back. It's like now I can go back.
I just felt like there was too much pearl clutching. It was like, all right, so is this the 1950s or something? I mean, come on, write it better. I don't know. So,
well, I'm choosing to think of it as this is this kind of thing they're going for. It's like these are the problems.
They're trying to make a statement.
Look what happened.
Yeah.
look what happens in this male-dominated society when men are gone.
Yeah, I mean,
women are women and other people are kind of fucked because you've traditionally kept us out of these things. Maybe you shouldn't do that anymore.
Right, and
in case you all die one day.
Right, exactly. I mean, I get the whole point of like, hey, there's a real problem here because with no men and no viable sperm anymore, because in the comic that also was eradicated. It's like we have no way at the moment to create more people. So that to me is like, all right, that's a real problem that isn't has no bearing on misogyny or anything. It's like if you eliminate half of the genetic material to create life, there's a problem. So that bringing that up, I was like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. But then the whole thing of like everything's going to fall apart and we're all dead. I'm like, I don't know. It felt like to me, it's like they were not giving women enough credit. It's like you're just assuming that women are going to run off and kind of like the scientists. It's like, I'm so broken up and I'm going to cry and I can't go do this. I'm like, really? You do not. That person of anyone would realize I have to do this because we're all fucked if I don't. Right?
Well,
so,
and she does.
She
does come around, but you also,
like, come on.
You have to give Diane Lane's character a chance to be presidential, right?
Yeah.
To help, there has to be a crisis for her to solve. Otherwise, what's her point? What's the point of the character? So there has to be problems that can be resolved, and there has to be problems that can be resolved because of her being a great leader. Yeah. She's rising to the occasion, but she was never given a chance to be in a leadership position. But now she is. Now she's the top dog, literally.
I will accept the premise of they're trying to make a point of men should stop trying to keep women out of basically doing stuff.
Keeping is bad.
Yes.
Let's put it that way.
But the way it's coming across to me is that without men, women aren't going to know what to do, and
it's because you're a white
man.
Do
not accept that. That's a stupid premise. And
well, I got to think that they're smarter than that. I hope. And the show basically run by women and written by women and produced by women and directed by women. It's like they're actually trying to make more of a statement about society than just women are helpless. I just don't think that's the premise at all. I mean, and also people are just undergoing trauma, and you can't expect them to make the correct decision.
Yeah, okay.
Which even though the whole thing about Yorick running away was cringeworthy in my opinion, I still can also understand it from a character point of view because he has nothing, and he has no, he has nothing and no one except his, his.
There's
mommy.
no way 355 would have dropped her guard to that extent, though. I just find that hard to believe.
Maybe you're right. And I wouldn't have given away that grenade. That was pretty cool too. So
yeah.
Anyway, that seems like a dangerous thing to just give to some weirdo, but whatever.
So let's move on to something else that's more fun.
Let's move on to something that also annoyed me. No.
What if?
This is just this episode where we're going to talk about stuff that annoy us. Our only pure excitement, at least from Joe's standpoint, was Doctor Who news, but now it's all downhill.
My only fun thing was hearing about Ted Lasso, and yours was watching it. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's the friends we met along the way. So, yes, what if episode 7, I guess, which was what if Loki was an only child? I'm sorry, what if Thor was an only child? I'm sorry, except for Hela, we forgot about her, but that's fine. We won't have to mention that person.
No.
But so Loki basically, God damn it, Thor. I keep saying Loki.
Loki was in it, but
Loki was in it and looking
the
fit,
actual Loki instead of
he was thick, as people were saying.
He was, yes.
Anyway, yes, Thor is an only child again, except for Hela, but he kind of comes across the same way he did in the first Thor movie, but then he doesn't have the whole thing with Loki. And so what happens? He's a party frat boy, and then he meets Jane, right? Yeah. And then Jane's like, she turns him around, and then Darcy marries Howard the Duck, which is a weird left field thing.
That was all right. So I'll just say right off the bat, I love this episode.
Spoilers.
I thought this episode
for What
was a lot of fun. It was just a fluffy episode, except the ending, which has me even more convinced now that we're leading to something, because there's no way they're not going to follow.
There's only 2 episodes left.
It's got to be leading to something, and but I don't know. I thought this was a really fun episode, and I enjoyed it.
It was, but really I feel like Marvel's defense is, well, it's a multiverse, so we can have this continuity problems and whole plot holes and whatever you want to call it, and it's a multiverse. It doesn't matter. So it's like Thor is basically the same, but there's no sibling rivalry with Loki because Odin gives him back to be raised by the Frost Giant. So he and Thor are best buds now instead of being rivals. So that means there's no New York. That means there's no Avengers. That means there's nothing, right? Because there's no reason for them to get together because Loki will never kill Coulson.
Right.
So there's no reason. So the Avengers don't exist in this timeline.
Right.
All we have is Party Boy Thor,
and
which
Captain Marvel.
Chris Hemsworth selling it really well.
Yes.
But you know what I thought was interesting? There was a couple of points in this where I'm thinking, wow, he's really like a Disney prince almost in this episode.
Pretty much.
Did you?
Well, he is a
people
prince,
pointed that out, but
he's
I'm
in a good place.
Well, he is.
So.
But it's like it's very sort of Disney-fied a little bit. I mean, for some reason, because I worked on a bunch of Disney animated films back in the day. He reminded me of Gaston from Pocahontas.
Well, he is kind of in that realm. I mean, he's a prince, but he's when it comes down to it, despite his heroics in the movies, Thor is pretty dumb, and without what happened to him in the main MCU, he would be just continuing as he always had been. He would have not learned anything. He would have just been the party boy and stuff, and that's what.
Right. He never learned anything from conflict with Loki. He never learned anything from anything really. And so
the worst he's had to worry about is his mom get in trouble with mom, and
mom had to FaceTime him and come back and go, hey, that's not cool, man. It was a fun episode. It was sort of I don't know. I don't want to say like a fluff episode, kind of. But what was the point of it? Do you think?
Well, again, it was another cautionary tale. It's like here, one thing that changed, and you have a Thor that's ineffective, and you don't have an Avengers. So it seems to be a common theme with many of these episodes so far. Is like they're only had to be a small change in the past and you have no Avengers. And so what does that mean? So as we see at the end of this one, and also I'm going to say that I think we've said this theory before, but I'm bringing up the theory that the Watcher brings the multiversal Avengers together because I liked him. He was even more prominent in this one. And then he did a, wait, what? At the end of the episode.
It's like, what the what?
Yeah, which was great. So
you didn't see that coming.
So something is happening that is not only causing these multiverses, but is either crossing them over or something else is going on that he's now becoming aware of, or so I think he's going to be responsible for bringing
Kang. Yeah. It's Kang fucking everything up, cooking up all the timelines, right?
But we have Vision Ultron with the Infinity Stones. It's like, well, that's not good.
Right. But I guess my question is, if there's no Avengers, then there'd be no reason to create. There'd be no Ultron, right? So Tony would never create Ultron. And certainly he wouldn't work with Banner because they would have never met.
But he's not. So he's not from that universe,
right? So my question is this just Ultron's final form because he was able to? Because he was trying to get the vibranium to make his final form. But where did he get all the Infinity Stones?
I don't know. Whatever either across the universes or in his universe, he merged with Vision and the way he wanted to encase himself in vibranium, because there's even the mid-season preview of What If. There is the scene where it is several of the characters from the episodes we've seen formed together fighting Ultron robots. So he's either like been going across the multiverse, conquering it or destroying it or something. So I think that's going to be the ninth episode. The final episode is.
Well, but the Watcher always says he can't interfere. I only
watch, but he did in the comics when it was necessary, and I think that's what he's going to do.
Well,
here.
he's going to have to, yeah. So, but I mean, I thought the episode was fun. It was nice to get all the characters doing the voices. Even Jeff Goldblum came back. I thought that was cool.
Yes. But and Maria Hill and Colby Smulders is Colby
Smulders, yeah. And Coulson.
Yeah, exactly. He's been in a couple now. So
and Nick Fury,
yep.
Of course. But everyone who's currently under contract to Marvel. So
because what's her name was not Frigga, but we had Darcy and
right, because you have to figure that they. Yeah, you got to figure that they appear in the next Thor film.
Right.
So Love and Thunder.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, I thought it was the episode was almost kind of a throwaway in a way, but it's like how will maybe you're right. How will these characters, the way they evolved in this multiverse, how will they deal with a threat like Ultron, Thanos, whatever? But yeah, I mean, it makes sense that this is how Ultron turned out because that was his plan all along.
Yeah.
And except for in the regular MCU, they stole the body, right, and they made Vision. They put Jarvis inside of it instead, and Thor, put the hammer down and
Yes.
and brought Vision to life. But it could have gone the other way if they hadn't stolen the body. So since the Avengers don't exist in this timeline, then it makes sense that Ultron was able to complete his master plan. But I still wonder who built Ultron.
It's probably
'Cause it
still
had to have been Tony.
I mean, I don't think
Suit of armor around the world.
Yeah, I think in whatever whatever universe that this Infinity Ultron comes from, Tony still created him, and obviously still had Jarvis. And even though
he still had Jarvis,
probably not in Avengers, so it would be what if Tony Stark created Ultron and the Avengers weren't there to stop him, essentially. Kind of thing.
Well, if there's no Avengers, then Tony could have just created whatever he wanted to, and it got away from him.
Yeah.
Also, he wouldn't necessarily have Banner,
Right?
Puny Banner,
Yeah.
or anything like that. So he was not under control. He was just doing Tony himself by himself, and went a little off the rails. And then Ultron became again. There was no Avengers, like you said. There was no Avengers to temper it. And to destroy it, and there was definitely no Vision, which is interesting because Vision is the one who destroys the final Ultron at the end of Age of Ultron.
And maybe Ultron was.
I was born yesterday,
Yes.
So which I thought
maybe
was
Ultron was sitting around, and when Thanos showed up, he offed Thanos and took the gauntlet. I mean,
maybe.
So
maybe. I don't know. Did he have a gauntlet? He didn't.
No,
I
it was
thought the
in his
stones were
armor.
embedded in his armor. Yeah. So again, multiverse. Maybe Thanos doesn't even exist in this multiverse. It's possible, although he's inevitable, so he's probably around somewhere.
But yeah, I think in episode 9 it'll be, and maybe this next episode will lead into it. But the Watcher will be like, "All right, so something screwy's going on, and there's chaos across the universe, and I'm going to bring multiversal Avengers together because there's rumors that in the Avengers team up for this one that the Doctor Strange that went evil is part of that team, and that he also appears in the Doctor Strange movie. So maybe the whole thing leads into Doctor Strange 2. So,
well, I mean, we talked about this before about the trailer for Doctor Strange or for Spider-Man. That's I think the other Strange.
Right.
Or it's Mephisto. No, anyway. It's Mephisto all along.
Mephisto all along. Yeah,
all along. Or it's Agatha. But yeah, I think that's right. I think there's going to be a multiversal Avengers with that Doctor Strange, with Thor, with Captain Carter, and whatever. But it won't have anything to do with Nick Fury, probably. So we'll see. I'd be interested to see, obviously, with the last 2 episodes, with what they're going to do with it. But again, if it's going to be the first season, if there's going to be more seasons of this, then they don't have to resolve much of anything. They could just have a cliffhanger, too.
That's true.
They could just multiversal Avengers assemble, and then that's the end.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's where we get the multiversal Avengers instead of in a movie. We get them in animated form.
Right. So, and we're going to talk about something else next week or whatever when you finally watch the rest of it. But I love the fact that we talk about Star Wars a lot, and this is talking about animation. It actually makes sense for what we're talking about with What If. But the whole Star Wars Visions thing, we're going to talk about that at another time. That is amazing. If you haven't watched Star Wars Visions, it's Star Wars stories reinterpreted by Japanese anime creators, and it's fucking amazing.
I'm there for it. I haven't watched it yet, which is why we're not talking about it this week. But I
just wanted to mention it because it's also my pick today too. Cool. So that's another thing. But I like this episode only because it was fun to get sort of a fun episode and see Captain Marvel and Thor fight. Quite a bit, which was different than, of course, in the MCU, the main MCU. They didn't really fight, but you just get the idea that Captain Marvel is definitely holding back because she's worried about destroying the planet.
Right,
it's like
exactly.
I could kill him, but then also I would destroy the planet.
Right.
So if she took him off planet, because she is the world's mightiest Avenger, right? Earth's mightiest Avenger.
She is.
Not Thor, but
exactly.
Anyway. I kind of miss the fact that it's not Brie Larson, even though the actress is doing a good job. It just doesn't sound like it's weird. I don't know why Brie Larson isn't doing it.
She's under contract. But, she's doing a new movie, so
yeah, maybe it hasn't started yet, or maybe they just I don't know. Of course, there's always those rumors that they don't like her. Of course, so that's why they bring her back.
She's actually fired. She's going to be fired from the new Captain Marvel movie.
Yeah, that's why they're bringing in Miss Marvel.
And I mean, it could be. I mean, I know it doesn't take a lot. Well, and I hate saying that because it's not really true. But maybe it's just like she's got a lot of other stuff going on, and maybe she's just like, you know what, I don't really like doing voice work, and that's fine. So,
some people aren't good at it, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Sebastian Stan apparently isn't good at it, but I think he's okay. But
he's fine. Yeah, he's fine, and maybe he doesn't have as much going on as Brie Larson. Academy Award-winning actress Brie Larson, by the way.
Exactly. But maybe she's like either, hey, I got a lot of things going on, or she could be like, you know what, my downtime is my downtime. I'd rather just not keep.
That's true. There's many reasons why people.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything negative, and I don't. Yeah. So.
Well, in her case, I'm sure it was a situation of scheduling or budgetary because she's probably pretty expensive now. So they say, and she's not currently doing anything for Marvel like some of these other people are.
I thought they already started shooting the second movie, Captain Marvel.
I don't think they have. I don't think they have yet. I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. But I feel like a lot of this was like, well, let's just get a booth here on set when you're already making something else. We can record your lines. I feel like they probably did that with this episode because Thor and Jane are already working, so it's like we'll just bring up a bus that has a booth in it, and you guys can do it.
Yeah, right.
So you don't have to go anywhere. But I was also happy to see Kat Dennings come back because I love Kat Dennings. So.
Yeah, we still need I still think we need a Darcy
spinoff show
because she's awesome.
Well, I'd like to know. I'd like to see what happens with her and Howard. I mean, that was kind of weird.
That was that was great.
Seth, once you go duck, you never go back. Is that what it goes? I don't know.
I forget what the whole thing, but I'm glad that they keep bringing Howard we need a Howard the Duck spin-off animated show now too. I thought they were making one.
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
It would make more sense to do it as animation, I think, than do it live action. Although he does figure in, he's definitely in. Well, he could be the only animated character. I mean, they could all be other humans or whatever. But I think you'll see Howard the Duck in maybe the next Guardians movie. That's my theory.
I would not be surprised.
I'm sure James Gunn's like, I would like Howard the Duck in this movie.
Hey, he was there in Endgame, so
he was. He absolutely was, and he was also in the Collector's collection too.
That's true.
So he exists. He's canon in the main MCU too.
He is, yes.
But yeah, Seth Green doing a good job. I think so.
So I would like to see more.
Of course, Seth Green is very used to doing voice work.
Exactly. So. Yeah, and like I said, some of the people that haven't done, I'm sure they approached everybody, even though Dave Bautista said they didn't. I'm sure they approached his agent, and it may be a case where some agent said, yeah, they're not going to do voice work, and maybe they stipulated that with their agent, I don't want to do voice work, or, maybe some of them, if they went to him personally and appealed to him, they're just like, I just don't want to do it, just not comfortable with it. I don't have a problem with that. That's totally fine, so...
No, I'm more cynical. I think it was all money.
Okay,
frankly. Right. I mean, they probably, if Dave Bautista says something, I believe him. It's like, why they didn't approach him because they couldn't afford him.
That could be.
It's like they don't want to spend the money. These animated shows are supposed to be cheaper. They have people that are currently working under Marvel contracts, and I'm sure that they would have to renegotiate with someone like Dave Bautista to do this, and probably have to renegotiate with Brie Larson to do this. And so they're not going to.
Do you think they stipulated in their contracts, though, that they would also do voice work?
Well, I don't know that they even had what if in their mind when they were making the contracts. It seems like
all of them they might. It's like, oh, we have this extra thing we want you to do. They would have to renegotiate with them, too. Because it isn't just a blanket contract. It's not like a studio contract. They get contracted, from what it sounds like, for X number of films or projects. So are they going to...
Right, but some of those projects could be, as yet undefined. But also, if you're savvy, you can make the case that this is publicity for the larger MCU movies.
Yeah, maybe. But are they going to spend the project card on this as opposed to keeping the movies? So I don't know. I guess...
Well, I mean, Chris Hemsworth has basically said he'll keep playing Thor as long as they ask him to. So I'm sure he was happy to do it. I mean, he's even in. I mean, if you believe the rumors or whatever, that he's actually in the Rogers the Musical.
Oh, right.
Chorus line playing Thor. It's like I figure there's a lot of that they do.
Yeah.
I mean, why does Matt Damon keep showing up in Marvel movies? It's like because he's fun. You know, they wanted to do it. So
I'm sure Matt Damon's getting paid too, but
sure, but like for a day or something. But I'm sure that Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman did this because they're already making a Marvel movie, and it's like publicity for Marvel saying, remember this Jane Foster character and how important she was in that first 2 movies that you probably didn't watch, the second one especially? She's definitely coming back in this.
Greg Clark isn't currently under contract. He's not doing any Marvel projects, but he's
shown up a few times. Clark Gregg is not expensive though.
That you know of. I mean, he's pretty prominent now.
Natalie Portman is expensive. Sure. Chris Hemsworth. I mean, Dave Bautista is blowing up.
There seems like there's a couple others too in some previous shows that are doing quite well now that I was surprised to see show up.
Yeah.
That aren't
Goldblum.
Yeah. So I don't know, but well,
I just think it's money, and I think it's just they didn't necessarily need those. I mean, if you're doing an episode about Thor and Jane, you kind of need Thor and Jane. Right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Because they're kind of the most important characters, and you need them to be the voices that people recognize. So that was probably more of a priority than Drax, who's in the background for most of.
Yeah, and I think he only had a few lines, and it's like we're not really going to pay him a whole bunch of money just to do these few lines.
Right. But I feel like that there wasn't. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't feel like there's a situation where actors like I won't do voice work. It's like they'll do it if you pay them. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Or they're not going to think it's beneath them, especially to someone like Dave Bautista. I don't ever imagine he's ever said that's beneath me.
No, I don't think it's that a case of it being beneath him. I just think it may be like for me, I hate listening to my voice, and maybe they're like, I don't. That's a.
You know what you should do? You should record a podcast. I should. That's a great.
Because it's different, and people probably don't. I don't mean to be patronizing, but don't realize that doing voice work is different type of acting. In a different way of acting than, on screen and stuff like that. And it may just be like, that's not a skill that I feel like I'm really good at. So I don't really want to try that, especially Brie Larson to be like, well, that character kind of carries the episode. And I don't know that I don't feel like my skills are a match for that. So I'm just being positive and trying to give people benefit of the doubt. So.
Well, I mean, I don't think that money is inherently negative. It's like I think that's more of a Marvel Disney decision than it is an actor decision. They just didn't want. I just don't think they have a amount of dollars they can spend for this entire series. They're gonna spend it where they have to, right? So if you can get away, because mostly what Captain Marvel does in this episode is beat the shit out of Thor or try to. So she doesn't have as much dialogue. She's not carrying the episode. The episode's not called "What If Captain Marvel Was Another Child," right? It's like, what if? So it's like. You have Hiddleston because no one can play Loki except Hiddleston, apparently, which is fine. I think that actually is true. And really, no one should try to play Thor except Chris Hemsworth. So, and you also got this movie coming out next year with Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman and Kat Dennings. So let's get them to play their characters in this show because, hey, we're making a movie that comes down later.
Okay.
Let's get Taika Waititi to play Korg again because Korg, Taika Waititi's in a movie, is directing our movie, so it's like it all makes sense because they're not stupid. They're thinking about the future. They're thinking about marketing. They're thinking about, hey, remind people there's another Thor movie coming out. Here's the people that are in it, doing this thing, and now there's going to be a movie next year with them in it. Oh yeah, remember that What If episode? It was amazing. So I got to think that comes up in conversations and meetings where what episodes are we going to do and What If to help further our agenda down the road. It has to. Otherwise, what's the point in some ways of doing this if it's not to help advance the larger MCU? Frankly, the movies make a lot more money than Disney Plus shows. So that's the whole point.
This has become the entertainment contract podcast.
Well, I mean, it's Disney. Disney is nothing if not practical.
No, I get
They're not gonna just spend money for no reason because they love entertainment. No, they want to make a fucking buck. And if they spend money now to publicize shit that's coming out next year, or as you pointed out, which also makes sense, these could be potential pilots for other shows, then that makes more sense from a business standpoint. Well, and I hate to put it to dollars and cents, but it's a business, man. It's not.
That's true.
And
stuff, they do have to spend money suing to keep their IPO. So,
Oh, but yeah. Keep the family of the creators down.
Yes. Well, we should not get into that. So, because no matter what I say about that, it's going to be taken the wrong way, and I'm going to be hated. So I'm going to keep quiet.
Okay. Picks.
Yes.
For
let's
God's
go on to
sake.
Picks. Let's talk about something we like.
Anyway, like I said before, I'll just go first. What I said before, my pick is Star Wars Visions. I love the fact that, we just talked about how, in some ways, how bad Disney is, but by the same token, they let this kind of thing happen. They're like, yeah, go nuts, and I fucking love that. And these guys did. They went nuts, and they made some crazy, samurai. Because obviously, people know that Star Wars was influenced by like Hidden Fortress, like Kurosawa films. And all that, the influence is very, very apparent. And so the fact that they went back to the well in a way, and they're like, yeah, just go crazy and make your samurai lightsaber, ninja, freaking Jedi stories, and kick ass with it and make it so visually amazing. I mean, the first one is also based on one of my favorite movies, Yojimbo, which is like it's so good, and they're all really cool, just visually and from a story standpoint. It's just so cool to let people sort of. I mean, people talk about like playing in the sandbox. It's just so well done, most of them, and so innovative and interesting. But also very Japanese too. If you know much about Japan and the Japanese culture, they're very Japanese, obviously, since they're made by Japanese people for the most part. So there's a lot of like influences and like cultural stuff in these stories that maybe some people won't get. I'm sure I'm not getting all of them either, but it's just the idea that this exists now. It's just it's super cool, and the fact that it turned out so well. So if you have not watched Star Wars Visions, and you like Star Wars and you like samurai movies or whatever.
Do you like kung
it's
fu?
Definitely
movies?
worth.
Anyway,
There's not a lot of kung fu, but there's a lot of samurai shit, and I love all that stuff. If you like Kurosawa and you like Star Wars, you have to watch this. So there you go.
Jedi are samurai, so anyway,
they are, yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
So, it's amazing. It's the fact that it exists at all is great, and the fact that Disney just let people do what they wanted to almost. I feel like there wasn't a lot of oversight on these stories. They're all like shorts, right? They're all like 20 or 30-minute short films, basically, in the Star Wars universe. But like you joked about it earlier, I don't know if you joked during this episode or before this episode, but they're not like, I don't know that they're canon in the Star Wars universe, but they're definitely.
I mean,
they could be. And there's some of these that I would like to see expanded too. Hopefully they will expand some of them. But anyway, I'll stop gushing about Star Wars Visions, and you can pick something.
I'm going to pick a comic book series, The Sandman, in light of the work being done for the Sandman TV series on Netflix and the recent release of the teaser. But even before the teaser, I've been revisiting the comic book series and just falling in love with it again and realizing what a great epic story it is. For people who don't know, back in the late 80s, going into the 90s, the Sandman was published as 75 issues as a comic book series. It was created by Neil Gaiman, Sam Keith, and Mike Dringenberg. And Neil Gaiman remained the writer for the entire time. This was like, not only was this just a great story, but this was like one of the first comic book series that I read from issue 1 all the way to the end to issue 75, but it kept the same writer the whole time, and when he was done telling the story, they canceled the comic and didn't continue it. I mean, most of the time, especially in superhero comics, with a writer or an artist is done, they bring in a new one, they continue the comics, and they keep going unless they are just not being bought, then they cancel it. But this was the first time I kind of read a series that went as long as the writer wanted it to, and then it was done. There's been a few more over the years that have happened that way at DC and Marvel. Mostly indie comics do that, but yeah, it was. I mean, it was published under the Vertigo label, so it was kind of like a independent comic in a way. But it still featured Superman showed up from time to time and some other characters. But it's just a great story, and it's almost like a comic book fairy tale done right. I don't know. It's a great series. I would say absolutely watch the TV series because even judging by the teaser, they're adhering very closely to the comic book. Again, another story that was labeled as unfilmable, but I'm assuming that means movies because there's no way you could do the story justice as a 2-hour movie. It had to be done as a series, so I'm glad
Yeah, I'm sure Unfilmable usually was talking about movies.
So I'm glad they're doing this as a TV series.
Cable didn't exist back
exactly.
then, right?
And streaming certainly didn't.
It didn't.
So I'm very, very excited for the TV series, but absolutely take the time to read the comic books. There are various collections over the years. You can get them in oversized hardbacks, all kinds of stuff. But I know they, collected them in trade paperbacks and stuff like that. But seek out the series if you don't already have it. Read it. It's really great, and enjoy the TV series when it comes out too. So there you go.
Yeah, I haven't read Sandman since it came out, but I was looking forward to a TV show adaptation of this or a movie adaptation. But yeah, I mean, the idea that you can make it as a movie it's not possible. Even if you split it into 2 movies or whatever, it just was not realistic.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to be a series and on something like Netflix where they can explore some of the different aspects of the characters and of the story, which you couldn't do in a regular network show probably either. They'd have to tone it down too much. So, and plus, I think Netflix has the money to throw at this kind of thing too. Not throw at it, but you know what I mean? Because I don't think ABC or somebody's going to do a Sandman adaptation where all the characters are like straight to white males.
Right.
It's not going to happen. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The teaser was cool, and it just reminds me of unfortunately, it reminds me of other things I've seen. Right. It's just that's okay because Sandman came out a while ago, so other
those
things
were probably influenced by Sandman.
Maybe influenced by it, yeah, exactly. So I'm definitely looking forward to the show, and maybe I'll go back and reread my Sandman books.
Sure, I have the original issues I bought as they came out, but then I also bought the oversized absolute editions that DC did that are just gorgeous. So.
Yeah, I'm almost positive I still have my comics from when it came out, the original issues, but I'm sure I have a trade too around somewhere. But if not, it's easily found, I'm
Absolutely.
sure.
You should seek it out. Anyway.
Seek it out and read it, yeah. Especially now with the show, I'm sure there's going to be tons of versions of it that you can find. And that's good. It's going to resurface. I mean, I don't feel like Neil Gaiman really is hurting for recognition or anything, so that's fine. But I like the fact that they're adapting this finally, and I think it'll be an interesting show. And the people involved in it seem to...
And he's overseeing it, so...
Yeah, so that's good too. So it's like they're sort of taking it seriously, I guess, is what I mean. And trying to do it justice. So, so cool. That's great. And and see Star Wars Visions and see Sandman when it comes out and read the comics before that and just enjoy things.
Yes.
Maybe not enjoy Y the Last Man. I don't know. Maybe I'll give it. You know what? I'm going to watch it the whole season.
I will.
I'm going to give it the whole season. And Foundation, obviously, I'm going to stick with because sci-fi stuff is my jam. Yeah. And What If is ending in 2 weeks, so that's fine. And then what else? What's coming next? What's after What If? I guess Hawkeye, maybe?
Hawkeye. The Expanse is going to come back at some point. Star Trek Discovery is coming out this fall. I mean, there's...
Yeah, no, I meant on Disney, but I mean, but I guess Hawkeye's probably the next show, right?
Yeah,
so
Hawkeye.
That's cool. Well, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. We talked about the trailer last week. That'll be
fun. Go watch
the
stuff you enjoy. That's my message. And
well, that's it. And even if it's Ted Lasso, go watch the show.
And don't spend. I'll give Y a few more episodes, and if I decide it's not my cup of tea, I'm gonna stop watching. I'm not gonna blast it. I'm not gonna jump on people for liking it, but I'll go on to something else. There's plenty of other things to watch. So watch the stuff that you. Love.
I understand the idea that you feel. Not you necessarily, Joe, but I mean, people feel obligated to watch things all the way through or hate watch or whatever. From a creative standpoint, from a filmmaking standpoint, as a creator myself, in some ways, I will give a show an entire season to try to build because I know how hard it is to make television. First of all, I know how hard it is to get shows to get the feel of what you're trying to do, and there's a lot of things like for Y in particular. There's a lot of like baggage that comes with the comics.
Sure.
And they're trying to sort of reinvent this show a little bit and reinvent the story for better or worse. Maybe that was a mistake. I don't know. But I'll give it a chance. I'll give it the entire season because it's not that long. And Foundation, obviously, I'll just keep watching because I just love sci-fi and I can't not watch things like that. Especially like hard sci-fi I love the fact that it's a show about math, basically.
Exactly.
Right? It's all about the math. It's like, if you want to make math interesting, then this is a way to do it because the entire world, the fate of the universe or the galaxy depends on people's ability to do math.
Right, exactly. It's kind of cool.
And they said that, and it's like, you'll never use this later in life, so don't use it. Why would you learn math in school? It's like, you will learn math in school so you can save the galaxy.
Right, see? Exactly.
So there you go. So pay attention in school, kids.
That's right. Stay in school.
Stay in school and don't do drugs.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever. Okay, cool. So that's it, right? I got nothing else.
I think we're good.
This was a much longer episode than it should be. So, but that's life. I won't even tell people where to find the Flickcast because you probably know by now.
Yes.
So we'll just end this right now by saying, for Joe Dilworth, I'm Chris Ulrich. That was the Flickcast. Thanks so much for listening.